In Venezuela, President Nicolás Maduro celebrated the exit of social network X from Brazil after the Supreme Court of Justice proved that it inoculates hate messages and spreads false information. In Paraguay, the deputy of the ruling party, Eulalio Gomes, was killed in his home by members of the police force during a raid. And in the United States, 1,000 protested in the middle of the Democratic National Convention, calling for an end to the war in Gaza while assuring they will not vote for Democrats. Hello and welcome to From the South. My name is Belén de los Santos, and from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba, we begin with the news. In Venezuela, President Nicolás Maduro celebrated the exit of social network X from Brazil after the Supreme Court of Justice of the country proved that it inoculates hate messages and spreads false information. During the broadcast of his program Con Maduro Más, the Venezuelan president denounced that Elon Musk incited a hate campaign through social networks, summoning Venezuelan influencers and artists abroad to betray their homeland. In this sense, the Venezuelan president asserted that the extreme right wing is no longer based on political parties, leaders, or ideologies, but on influencers who manage a large number of followers. President Maduro also celebrated the exit of social network X in Brazil and assured that Latin America will defeat these media campaigns that seek to undermine peace and the institutionality of the nations of the region.
Yo tengo un informe que me mandaron de Brasil, mira, aquí lo tengo. ¿Ve?
I have a report that they sent me from Brazil. Look here, I have it. See, it is quite long. It turns out that a judge of the Supreme Court of Brazil, surnamed Moraes, applying the law and the laws that exist in Brazil against false information, hate crimes, which are laws that every country has the right to approve to defend their society, discovered all the campaigns of hate and lies which were applied in Brazil in the last election campaign of Elon Musk through X, previously called Twitter, against Brazilian citizens, as Elon Musk openly supported, in a vulgar way, violating the laws of Brazil, to Jair Bolsonaro, as he later supported the assault to power on January 8th. Then in those investigations the court took precautionary measures, with Twitter, with X, then Elon Musk, as he gives himself a bravo, seeing that he was lost, before the highest court of Brazil, announced yesterday that he is leaving Brazil. Very good, Brazil. Excellent. You have won mental health and peace. Out Elon Musk and out X from Latin America.
On the other hand, the Venezuelan head of state denounced that the National Electoral Council has been the major victim of a cyber attack, so that the electoral power system will not be available for August 25th consultation.
Venezuela ha sido objeto de un gran ataque cibernético. ¿Ha sido o no?
Venezuela has been the object of a great cybernetic attack. Not only has it been and still is. Here I have the Vice President of Science and Technology for the government, Professor Gabriela Jimenez, and I was asking the team of the communal consultation about how one can know how to vote, and today they told me that was very easy in April because the National Electoral Council system was working and you put in your ID number, and it said, vote in such and such polling station. But the National Electoral Council system was pulverized by the cybernetic war, and for this consultation there is no electoral system. We are trying to rebuild a system where you as a citizen, you as a neighbor can put in your ID number normally as IT has always worked, and you can consult where to vote.
Now let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. On Monday, the deputy of the ruling party of Paraguay, Eulalio Gomes, was killed in his home by members of the police force during a raid. The police operation was part of a series of raids carried out in the city of Pedro Juan Caballero. One took place in the home of the congressman of the Colorado Party and another in the home of his son, Alexander Rodrigo Gomes. In this regard, preliminary information revealed that both had offered resistance, which provoked an exchange of fire with the authorities that resulted in serious wounds to the deputy, who passed on the way to the hospital. It should be noted that the father and son were being investigated for money laundering linked to a Brazilian criminal organization. In Ecuador, 13.7 million citizens are eligible to go to the polls again and choose their presidential and legislative binomial. There is an electoral calendar underway. At what stage is it? We asked our correspondent, Elena Rodriguez, in Quito.
This August 17th was the deadline for political organizations to carry out their internal democratic processes.
Estamos terminando la fase de primarias.
We are finishing the primary phase, that is, the internal elections of each of the political parties and movements, to choose the people who will represent them in the next elections.
After that, this Monday the process of acceptance of candidacies took place. The militants and pre-candidates of the Citizen Revolution movement arrived at the National Electoral Council to comply with what is established in the Code of Democracy.
With experience and knowledge, we are going to move this country forward. We can no longer resist improvisation. We can no longer play at random with the lives of 18 million Ecuadorians, and today begins this path to recover this wonderful country, to restore hope, faith, and the joy of better days.
And although the political parties have decided who will participate in the race scheduled for next February 9th, they are not the definitive candidates.
This does not mean that the possibility of alliances is closed. It's still open, and I aspire that at this moment the greatest possible unity is required to face the great problems the country has. Insecurity, the lack of economic reactivation, the lack of employment, the abandonment that exists in social issues. Health, education, these are issues that require unity.
The unity that 5 leftist political organizations are seeking to achieve in the face of the elections.
I hope that in the next few days, when this possibility is closed, we will be able to incorporate some lists in order to integrate this great alliance.
The groups have until August 30th to establish alliances and register them before the electoral authorities. So far, there are 17 pre-candidates for the presidency. The definitive registration of candidacies will take place from September 13th to October 2nd.
Con imágenes de Henry Pillajo, Elena Rodriguez, teleSUR Ecuador.
Now we move on to other topics. In Haiti, hundreds of protesters marched in the streets of Port-au-Prince on Monday, demanding more security from the authorities after the latest increase in criminal group violence. The demonstration was called by residents of the Solino neighborhood after some criminal groups took control of the area in the last few days to gain a strategic position on an important route through the city. The attacks in the Solino community were led by criminal leaders Jimmy Cherizar and Kempe Sanon, displacing hundreds of people who lived in the neighborhood. Despite the statements of Prime Minister Garrigonil assuring that the protection and safety of the citizens would be prioritized, criminal groups continue to control 80% of the capital of the country.
We are marching to fight against insecurity. We don't want insecurity in Solino. We want changes. We're fighting against the Haitian state. We're fighting against the United States. We're fighting against the Secretary of State of the United States, the United Nations, and all the oligarchs who are corrupt. Also, when you look at the weapons, you can see that they are made in the United States.
In the United States, the Democratic National Convention began on Monday at the United Center in Chicago, Illinois. Around 50,000 people gathered in the city, including thousands of anti-war activists. Demonstrators called for an end to the war in Gaza, while some residents of Little Palestine had a different message for presidential nominee Kamala Harris. The residents of the Chicago suburb, home to the largest Palestinian community in the said they wouldn't vote for the Democrats since they don't want them in the Oval Office. Palestinian flags fluttered and posters called for demonstrations against steadfast U.S. military support of Israel as the death toll mounts in Gaza. In this context, President Joe Biden said that protesters against Israel war in Gaza who demonstrated outside the Democratic National Convention in Chicago have a point.
Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Killer Kamala is her name!
To end the civilian suffering of the Palestinian people and finally deliver a ceasefire and end this war. Those protesters out in the street, they have a point. A lot of innocent people are being killed on both sides.
And we stay on topic as former Secretary of State and First Lady Hillary Clinton addressed the Democratic National Convention, commenting on Donald Trump running for president despite facing 34 felony convictions and discussing Kamala Harris potentially becoming the 47th president of the United States.
Donald Trump fell asleep at his own trial, and when he woke up, he made his own kind of history, the first person to run for president with 34 felony convictions. And you know what? On the other side of that glass ceiling is Kamala Harris raising her hand and taking the oath of office as our 47th president of the United States. So it is no surprise, is it, that he is lying about Kamala's record. He's mocking her name and her laugh. Sounds familiar. But we have him on the run now. Donald.
And now we have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English. There you will be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back from the south. Monkeypox is putting several countries on alert due to its rapid spread and the emergence of a new variant. In the sector of the Democratic Republic of the Congo awaits the arrival of vaccines against the Mpox virus in a context of a sharp increase in the number of cases. Let's see.
The World Health Organization declared last week that the increase in cases in Africa of the virus, formerly known as monkeypox, is a global public health emergency. Since July, cases have been reported in Burundi, Kenya, Rwanda, and Uganda, and in the last week cases have also been reported in Sweden, Pakistan, and the Philippines.
Today, the disease affects more than 17 African countries, so we are talking about a continental emergency. Secondly, as far as our situation in the Democratic Republic of the Congo is concerned, we have 16,700 cases and just over 570 people have died. The novelty of this disease is that it is affecting more and more young people, and many children under the age of 15 are infected.
The virus was discovered in 1958 in Denmark in research monkeys. It was first found in humans in 1970 in what is now the Democratic Republic of the Congo. But since September 2023, Africa has been facing the spread of a new variant of the virus, called Clade 1b. which is deadlier and more transmissible than previous variants, and in which children are most at risk.
This is a different variant. This is clade 1b, and this seems to be even more lethal than any of the variants of mpox that we've seen before. It's got a mortality rate of about 3 to 4% overall, and it's higher, perhaps around 8 to 10% in children and in pregnant women.
The professor noted that the incubation period is between 1 and 2 weeks, which facilitates the spread of the virus. But he estimated that if health personnel around the world are alert, it is possible to prevent the virus from spreading and causing the kind of pandemic seen with COVID-19. Officials said Monday that they expect the first doses to begin arriving in the country next week.
Now we move on to other topics. In Venezuela, there is a magical religious manifestation called the Dancing Devils of Yer. Let's see what it's all about.
In the states of Aragua, Carabobo, Guarico, and Vargas in Venezuela, every year the Corpus Christi is celebrated, which is a religious festivity where groups of adult men, youth and children wear peculiar costumes and masks, performing dance steps backwards in an attitude of penitence, at the same time that a hierarchy of the Catholic Church advances towards them carrying the Holy Sacrament. In this way, the pledgers render honor for the favors conceived to the most holy sacrament of the altar. The musical accompaniment of the procession is made with stringed instruments and percussions, while the faithful sound maracas to drive away evil spirits. At the culminating moment of the celebration, the devils surrender submissively before the blessed sacrament, symbolizing the triumph of good over evil.
El origen de esta tradición se remonta al siglo XVIII.
The origin of this tradition dates back to the 18th century, in the colonial era, when the large haciendas were worked by black slaves brought from Africa and indigenous people captured during the conquest. There was a year of great drought, a situation that began to worry them, for fear of reprisals from the owners of the land. The Spaniards, if they lost the harvest, worried, they made rituals and petitions to their gods for rain, but time went by and the drought continued. The slaves, indoctrinated by the Spaniards through the Catholic faith, decided to resort to the blessed sacrament. Finally, on the day of Corpus Christi in the year 1749, it began to rain torrentially, the crops were saved, good fruits were produced, and the harvest was abundant. From that date on, the day of Corpus Christi, a dance is performed in honor of the most holy sacrament of the altar, as a religious manifestation which takes place 9 Thursdays after Holy Thursday.
Los diablos danzantes de Yare en Venezuela nacen de la...
The dancing devils of Yare in Venezuela are born from the mixture of 3 cultures, the indigenous, the African, and the European. Each one of them incorporated elements that identify and define them. During the dance, maracas are used, an element that represents the indigenous people. The drum, the dance, and the masks are representative of the African culture, and the religion is the contribution of the Europeans. The dancing devils of Venezuela were added to the representative list of the intangible cultural heritage of humanity approved by UNESCO in 2012, a recognition that projects the great potential of Venezuela around the world.
And like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also join us on social media. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and also on TikTok. For TeleSUR English, my name is Verónica Santos. Thank you for watching.